For one of my recent ambient tracks, I tried using Ptolemai's just intonation in order to make it sound more in harmony with itself than it would with 12-tone equal temperament. I was surprised by how much of a difference it made. Here's how I did it. First, here's the 12-tone equal temperament version of the track. Each pitch is logarithmically equidistant from every other pitch. As one pitch an octave up from another is always double its speed, and there are 12 pitches in a 12-tone equal temperament octave, this means that to calculate the next pitch's frequency, you simply multiply the last pitch's frequency by 2 to the power of 1 divided by 12. Invoking 2 to the power of something makes it logarithmic, and making that something 1 divided by 12 means you get to have 12 pitches per octave. Almost all modern music uses 12-tone equal temperament, so almost all instruments you can buy conform to it, including off-the-shelf MIDI to CV converters. This means that to play in this tuning system, I only have to tune my synthesizer once, and then I can change the pitches playing as much as I like. I can therefore cheat and use portamento, partly because it sounds nice, and especially interesting with spring reverb, as all of the pitches in between the ones I'm playing get reverberated as it slides around, and partly to save time. With just intonation, however, these off-the-shelf synthesizer parts aren't designed to use such an obscure tuning system. I therefore have to tune each pitch manually, meaning I have to tune one of the pitches, then record all the notes that use that exact pitch throughout the piece of music, then tune another pitch, record all the notes that use that, and so on, for all 14 distinct pitches used in this piece of music. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of Ptolemai's book on harmonics. Fortunately, I'm on the internet. According to a few websites, including Wikipedia, the ratios for this intense diatonic scale are 1, 9 to 8, 5 to 4, 4 to 3, 3 to 2, 5 to 3, 15 to 8, and 2. Note that the 1 is simply the arbitrary root pitch of the key, and the 2 is that same pitch again, only this time it's up an octave. Remember that every pitch doubles when it's up an octave, regardless of the tuning system you use. This gives us 7 ratios, 7 pitches per octave, so it's a good job I happen not to include any pitches outside the main key in this particular piece of music. As this is roughly in the key of G, I've decided to make the first note 50 Hz. This can be any arbitrary number, but for this particular piece of music, I want to represent a mains hum with a deep 50 Hz note that remains throughout the entire piece, in the style of the second piece from the second CD of Aphex Twin's alternately sublime and haunting album, Selected Ambient Works Volume 2. Such a friendly round number is also going to be easier to make fractions out of, although I'm sure any Babylonians will be quick to point out how 360 Hz would have been an even better starting point. Nevertheless, I'm going with 50. So the first pitch is 50 Hz. To get to the second pitch with the ratio of 9 over 8, you simply divide that 50 by 8 and multiply it by 9, giving you 56.25. The third pitch is 5 over 4, so it's 50 divided by 4 and multiplied by 5, or 62.5. Calculating all the other pitches, you find out that C is 66.6 recurring Hz, D is 75 Hz, E is 83.3 recurring Hz, and F sharp is 93.75 Hz. Of course, the next G is 100 Hz, double the original 50, and so on. The next G up from that is 200 Hz, not 150, because we're doubling each time. Due to how our ears work, musical pitches, and for that matter musical volumes, always use a logarithmic scale, meaning they always double. Powers of 2 are abundant in music, which is perhaps one of the reasons I find it so interesting. So now we know what each pitch should be. The next task is to take all the notes in the piece of music and split them up by pitch, which thankfully Reaper can do for me. The final task is simple but painstaking. We fine-tune the first frequency by hand using the oscillator's pitch fine-tune knob and a multimeter with a built-in frequency counter. Since making this track, Nina has reminded me that you can more easily tune things with the Guitar Tuner plugin. Your DAW probably already has a good one built in. For example, Reaper's Retune seems to do the job well. The geekier among you may prefer the stylish alternative of a multimeter like we've used, or even an oscilloscope. Then we play the first set of notes. Once we've done this, we repeat the process for the next pitch, fine-tuning the frequency by hand again, then performing that set of notes. We repeat this process for each pitch in the track. As my oscillator has a footing knob that changes the octave, I can tune again. this time by recording the second octave's Gs straight after the first octave's Gs, without having to retune my oscillator. I can then move on to the A's and record both octaves of those after only tuning them once. On the other hand, as it's an analog oscillator, it's prone to drift slightly, which normally gives it a nice subtle character, but right now I want to avoid such drift, so I have to keep an eye on it and constantly fine-tune it, so to speak, as it's playing. I can further cheat by only recording the notes and stopping for the silence in between them, which isn't great as the minute sound of the background noise abruptly starts and stops throughout the track, but it saves a lot of time. Remembering Wendy Carlos's painstaking tape splicing work and how good her music sounds, it seems like a perfectly acceptable compromise, so let's do this. Remembering her work also reminds me that I'm living in the 21st century with access to equipment that people could only dream of 50 years ago, and so I have no grounds for complaint about how tedious such work might be. Here are the results, the two versions of the finished piece of music. The just intonation version took a lot longer to record and can't have portamento. At least I doubt I could tune all the notes in real time. But it sounds, to my ears at least, less powerful and grating and more smooth and clear. In other words, it sounds more in tune. It actually sounded more different than I was expecting, and more pleasant too, considering that like everyone else of this time period, I've listened almost exclusively to music that's technically slightly out of tune. What do you think? I'd be curious to hear how other people think the two versions of this track compare.